Hey everyone, this is Dr.Jess Nerren. I am here today to talk with faculty about remote instruction. So you might get a accommodation letter that says remote instruction on it or remote instruction class aid. Okay, so I want to tell you a couple things that is and that isn't, so that way you're set up for your best successes if you happen to get an accommodation letter that says this. So that way I'm able to help anticipate your questions and alleviate any concerns or worries or hanging question marks along the way. Okay, so remote instruction means that a student came to us and verified with us an actual need, not a preference, right? But an actual need for remote instruction. So let me give you an example to paint that contrast. A preference would be, I just find driving to school to be a hassle. Okay, that's not something that flows through our office and results in remote instruction. Somebody who says, I have a personal need that makes it physically impossible related to my disability to be in class right now, which does happen, that might flow through our office and result in a remote instruction accommodation. Okay, so when you see this, you'll typically also see that it says temporary. What does it mean that it's temporary? It means that it's assigned term by term at the longest. Okay, so if you have questions about the duration of the assignment, you can always get in touch with us, but typically it's for the duration. A lot of times it's for the duration of the term. And so that is because students, we expect them to come back and keep talking with us if this is something that still applies to them. Okay, so it's not an Oprah Winfrey, you get a car kind of situation. And it's definitely not a preference based accommodation. It is an accommodation based on a verified disability, just like all of our accommodation letters are. Okay, so what I've seen sometimes just as a faculty member here is that sometimes our students are still learning how to self-advocate. So sometimes how they talk with us as faculty doesn't necessarily represent that in its entirety, because maybe they really do have this profound disability related personal need, but then maybe on top of that, it helps them in other ways. So sometimes just in the flow and ease of conversation, they might say things to just kind of like smooth out the edges. And I definitely have seen this. So, a person who verified their disability with us might also say, oh, it's great, I don't have to drive, right? Maybe they're trying to be cool in front of their peers or whatever. So talk to us if you have questions, but know that when you see remote instruction or remote instruction class aid, it is something that's verified with our office. It's not anything but a disability related accommodation. That's what it is. Okay, and a disability related accommodation stems from an interactive process getting at someone's functional limitations. So what can a person not do that gets in the way of their access to education? And then we help accommodate that so that way it still brings them to the table. Okay, so sometimes what brings them to the table is that remote instruction. Now, class aid remote instruction, what is that? Okay, so we've got a bunch of student assistants that work at SSD, and what they do, if you see class aid remote instruction, it's probably because you have an in-person class. What it means is we actually send one of our student assistants in, they open up a laptop or a tablet and turn on Zoom, and then they feed the class to the student on remote instruction. So that way it's not an extra to do for you. It's not additional work. It doesn't require additional technical know-how. It just magically happens. Okay. So sometimes, like I had a professor this term who said, sometimes we're talking about sensitive matters. Would it be possible for the class aide to sit in the front of the room instead of the back? So that way, as folks talk about these sensitive matters, it's not also accidentally filming who's talking about it. Yes, of course, right? And if you need to take a pause for a second, let's say someone, is having an intensely personal moment in your class, unrelated to anything that's being tested or evaluated in any way, you can always just talk with the class aide and go, hey, this isn't going to be on any test or paper. Let's just if we could maybe hit pause on the the recording or the remote instruction, that would be amazing. Okay. So you have options, and there really is a live person there who is a peer with one of your students who's receiving this accommodation, who you can engage in that dialogue with. Now, okay, they're a student assistant, they were sent their tasks by our office. If there's something you need and they're like, I don't know, sometimes that happens, just come back and talk to me or whoever in SSD, come to the front desk and we'll make sure to get you taken care of. Okay. So whatever it might be, we're going to do it. If you have preferences, yeah, record it, send the recording, get it transcribed, do extra stuff. Cool. If you have preferences where you're like, that's not really needed, I turn on a Zoom anyways, and the student has a link. Cool. Let us know and we'll work with you and we'll customize to what works best for you, right? That would mean that you would turn it on every single time. But as long as you're good doing that, I was always good doing that. I've had students on remote instruction. I was like, I turn on the Zoom anyways, because if someone's sick, I don't want them in class. But if they want to Zoom in, they can Zoom in, right? So every single person has a different preference, and every single faculty member has a different style of teaching and different things that are easy and hard for them. Okay. So we're here to meet you at your need. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit more about how someone gets remote instruction, what it might mean when you see it on an accommodation letter, and different ways to navigate the process based on unique needs that come up in the class. So hopefully I've touched on all of those here. If you have additional questions, you can email ssd@csusb.edu at any time. Just say, hey, I'm faculty, I had a question about this, and we're going to make sure to get you taken care of. Alrighty, thanks so much. See you at the next video.